So-called foreign-funded activism is in the news again today because Alberta Premier Jason Kenney and a number of his cabinet ministers are retweeting about the Tides Canada rebranding itself as Makeway. And the Premier and his ministers are repeating false claims about Tides Canada role in funding pipeline activism. So to talk to us today, we're going to speaking with Joanna Kerr, who is the CEO of Tides Canada / Makeway. So welcome to the interview, Joanna.
Thanks, Mark. Good to see you.
Now, let's start with Premier Kenney's source of information. Now, he called a year ago, and it's the public inquiry into anti-Alberta energy activism is scheduled to submit its final report on July 2nd. They've been going on doing this for a year now. And you say that they have never contacted you to get your side of the story.
That's correct. Commissioner Allen never reached out to us. So it felt like a very unpublic public inquiry. And these allegations that he continues to make are based on what? Not sure, not clear. But we're very clear about our relationship to Tides US. There's no legal, governance, financial connection between the two organizations. There has been what has felt like willful conflation and confusion of the two organizations. It was certainly one of the reasons why we wanted to change our name, because even some of our allies think that we are the Canadian affiliate of Tides in the US. But we are also, pivoting. We're shifting direction as well.
Now, so if I understand this correctly, the Premier is making allegations for which he has no direct knowledge. And if you don't want to say it, I will, because I wrote the first big debunking of researcher Vivian Krause's allegations on this foreign-funded activism. And in my interviews with many NGOs and charities like yourself, some were involved in activism, some weren't. And you said very clearly on the record during my interview with you that you were not tied to Tides Foundation in the US. You also said that Tides Canada does not fund pipeline activism. It funds things like pipeline impact, community impact studies and work, but not activism. Is that still the case?
That's the case. So yeah, and the allegation is that we are the tar sands campaign, or we are behind the tar sands campaign, which we are not. We have received US international funding, indeed, but that has been very much focused on vital marine and terrestrial protection and Indigenous stewardship, including for the Great Bear Rainforest. And that was funding that was coming in well before there was any whisper of a pipeline. And so it feels like that work around the protection and Indigenous stewardship of those critical geographies has been named as anti-pipeline campaigns, which they have not. We are a charity and we only fund charitable activities.
So let's talk about where that confusion comes from. And I have brought this up again and again on social media with Vivian Krause, that she has made the mistake of confusing Tides Foundation and Tides Canada simply because they share a name. There's never been any evidence that there is a formal link, or that you work together, or that you fund the tar sands campaign. Has Vivian ever contacted your organization? I understand from your staff that she's verified dollar amounts, but she's never verified, as a researcher should, what that money was spent on.
So it was long before I arrived, which was a year ago, but the same, I've understood that we've never been asked specifically about that funding. And yet in every opportunity that we have had, including on our website, we have clarified what the funding that we get and where it goes. And so we're not trying to hide anything at all. We are absolutely trying to enable nature and communities to thrive together. And it's more critical than ever.
Joanna, I've got to ask this question. If you know that the premier is trading in falsehoods, will your lawyers be sending a letter to his office asking him to stop?
Good question. I'll get back to you on that one.
Fair enough. Joanna, thank you very much, and nice to talk to you again.
Thanks for your work, Mark. Cheers.